What's the sad reality of being an adult that young people should know? They may deteriorate too. The person who used to comfort you and have answers does not have the answers anymore and can't help you or even themselves. My mother moved in with me about 5 years ago. At first it was just because she could not drive or take care of her home anymore. Now she has bad short-term memory, poor emotional control, diminished critical thinking and is frustrated by these things to the point where it is hard to interact with her. She has isolated herself from almost everyone but me and even our relationship is deteriorating. It is sad to watch someone who used to be the glue fall apart. Absolutely. Start having hard convos as you and your parents get older. Do they have the insurance or savings to get the care they might need? Do they have expectations that you'll move them into your house? At what quality of life do they want a DNR? Do they have a will? Never thought this ton of bricks would hit me in my 30s when my parents are only in their 60s, but here we are. You could have cake for breakfast, but you're going to feel disgusted with yourself and have a sugar crash at work during a meeting that you should have been paying attention to, and now your boss is staring at you expecting you to answer their questions, but if you just say yes, you might be committing to working weekends for the rest of perpetuity and your life will be ruined forever, and it was all because you convinced yourself that since there are eggs in cake it's a totally acceptable breakfast food. Death is always on the way. But the fact that you don't know when it will arrive seems to take away from the finiteness of life. It's that terrible precision that we hate so much. But because we don't know, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well. Yet everything happens a certain number of times, and a very small number. Really, how many more times will you remember a certain afternoon of your childhood? Some afternoon that's so deeply a part of your being that you can't even conceive of your life without it. Perhaps 4 or 5 times more, perhaps not even. How many more times will you watch the full moon rise? Perhaps 20, and yet it all seems limitless. Paul Bowles, The Sheltering Sky. No one will take care of you. This is a sad truth that I've come to realize now that I've gotten chronically sick. I'm going through the worst experience ever, and it doesn't stop. Doctor test after doctor test to figure out why I've got acid reflux that makes my voice hurt. It's even given me tinnitus. Just trying to make it to the next doctor tests in the months to come, hoping the surgery I have in mind will be the solution. I'd prefer something easier, but I've tried everything and none of it has worked. Now I sit at home a lot and lost a lot of friend connections. I can't eat out anymore. The consequences are severe and very damaging. I can't even have fruits anymore without my body destroying itself. I can even see it happen. See my throat get digested. Haven't even made it to 30 yet and feels like my body is falling apart all over, all of a sudden. I don't know how people manage this, but I'm praying it'll stop soon. It's so debilitating. I spent my early 20s thinking I was this artful outsider who didn't have anything in common with my coworkers or peers. I was extremely judgmental about everyone and in turn was really isolated, spending a lot of time by myself at home talking on message boards with other people who I felt like related to me. I can't explain what happened, but I had a break somewhere around 26 or 27 where it was like I'm actually just a narrow-minded, secluded, stuck-up asshole who goes online to talk to other people who are just like me to seek validation. In reality, I'm surrounded by people who may not share my worldview, but aren't really terrible people and they deserve kindness way more than I do. It's been 10 years since that revelation and I've spent them building relationships with different people, especially at work. You know, helps work go by a lot faster, having friends there you can talk to about whatever. This is a big one. You don't realize as a kid how you're constantly in social situations through school and sports activities, etc. As an adult you realize that those best friends you currently have, they'll always be your best friends, but you might only get to see once a month or a few times a year, and there'll be people you're close to that you won't see for a year or more. Lining up schedules to meet is so difficult. People have work things, family things, or just want to let their mind and body rest after a week of work. As a kid you don't really understand that once you're grown as shit, you spend your week working. Saturday is life admin day, laundry, housework, food shopping, errands, DIY etc. Not everyone wants to go out Friday, spend Saturday with a hangover and then only really have Sunday to relax or enjoy yourself before you need to think about work again, and sometimes you forget you're not 18 anymore, drink way too much, and you ruin your entire weekend with a 2-day hangover. Yes, they happen. Yes, it'll happen to you. We used to be able to drink an entire bottle of vodka before going out too. Nothing sounds appealing about that anymore, and I'm only 29. Having time outside of work and looking after yourself to do activities is difficult, and if you're single as an adult it's even harder to deal with because there's not a lot of social stuff you can do on your own. Your friends will be busy on weekends with their partners and eventually their kids. It's always great to see a friend find a partner, but on the opposite side there's the single friend whose weekend plans just got cut in half and who might now have to spend multiple weekends completely on their own because everyone has plans. Finishing work Friday and knowing there's a real chance you might not actually speak to anyone till you start work Monday is a real horrible realization. Work friends are a good thing to have. I work freelance and from home, so that's impossible for me. I realized this early in my career and started going to the gym. Not only is it great for your mind and body, but if you go enough it's as much a social thing as it is a fitness thing. When moving to a new city, work friends become like your family. You'll always have someone to hang with for a drink or two after work. But when you move jobs, chances are your work family disappears. They were friends of circumstance. You often don't have any real connection other than sharing a workplace, and everyone has their own lives outside of work. It gets more difficult the older you get. Make sure you keep in touch with your close school friends. Chances are if you've been friends through school and college you've got a friend for life, even if you aren't together all the time. For me, you realize not even your parents have their shit together. When they say it'll make sense you're older, they mean it. There's a scene in Him that gets me more emotional as an adult once you realize how true it is. Marshall tells Dad that as a kid, his family would always drive to a summer cabin in pitch black in the middle of the night. Marshall was scared, but his dad was behind the wheel, so he always felt less afraid. When he has to drive at night with Dad, likely down that same road, he realizes his dad was probably as scared as he was, but he just kept driving and hoped for the best. The good news is that the people you used to call on for help weren't better than you, or magic, or special. They were just like you are now, stuck as adults. Stuck as the person who has to find a way to do it. And they probably felt as lost, worried about failure, and desperately hoping for someone else to take over as you do now. Most people have imposter syndrome about adulting. This is magnified by the fact that a lot of the markers of adulthood we saw growing up often aren't applicable today. You can't adult like your parents did even if you wanted to, so try not to feel bad about that. It's a different world now and it has different ways to adult. Childhood is heavily structured, sort of like having bumpers on a bowling lane. For the most part, you know where you're supposed to be, and where you're going next. This is true both on a daily basis and a long-term basis. Every day, your parents arrange for your breakfast, then you go to school, you go to an extracurricular, you come home, your parents arrange for your dinner, you do homework, you play, you go to bed. Each year, you have midterms, then finals. Then you move to the next grade. You go from elementary school, to middle school, to high school, to college or tech school, then to a job. It's possible to go off the rails as a kid, but it's fairly difficult. The system will exert immense force to keep you on track and rolling along to the end. Even if you fuck up significantly, there is always somebody to pick you back up and chuck you back down the bowling lane. Even if you start rolling backwards, if you skip school and get caught, the police might even haul you in as a truant. The system is that serious about keeping you moving along the path. Then you graduate, the bumpers come off, the lane disappear, and you're a bowling ball sitting in an empty field. There's no more track. There is no system pushing you along. There's not even any pins. No obvious goal or objective. If you fuck up or slack off as an adult, you might literally become homeless and sleep under a bridge. You might literally not eat. You could actually die. That force that propels kids from grade to grade, promoting them up through the system, does not exist at all in the adult world. There is nothing propelling you into a job, promotions, or raises. There is nothing propelling you into renting an apartment, finding a spouse, or into owning a house. You have to fight, and scrap, and challenge for everything from money, to recognition, to social interaction. Everything. The freedom that comes along with this is wonderful, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. It is the way it needs to be. But many people wipe out in early adulthood because they think that the magic force propelling them forward will stick around forever. Far too many people think that they're just going to be handed a job, promotions, and a house, for the simple reason that they were handed everything else they needed up until that point. But that's not how adulting works. Best answer: 100% this. I'd like to add that it may feel like you're still being pushed along a path. You can go to work, pay your bills, play some video games or whatever, eat, sleep and repeat, and you'll coast along just fine, until you're approaching 30 and you realize you've coasted through your entire adult life so far and achieved nothing. You can do everything right and have nothing to show for it. The most important life skills at this stage are knowing what you want, taking initiative, and being assertive. You have to make your own goals and realize that even simple things like making friends, finding a partner and having fun will now require serious effort. They don't just happen naturally anymore, unless you're very lucky. Well said, and goes along with one thing that struck me as I got into mid-20s. In school, there's grades, finals, etc. constantly telling you how you're doing in life. Once you graduate, the way to gauge your progress, success in life and move forward becomes far more obscure. There's no longer an A+ waiting for you in December to let you know you're doing the right thing or a C to tell you to get your shit together. You're just doing whatever you're doing. And sometimes it'll feel good, other times you're totally lost and confused. I think that's part of what drew me into a sales career. Because month/quarter/annual etc. there's a leaderboard and I can see my accomplishments when I screw up. Otherwise you work a job where years can fly by and you're like, wait, fuck, I'm never gonna get promoted here, am I? Did I just waste 3 years? Or should I see if I get promoted next year? What the fuck am I even doing? Just my personal experience. Worse is that even if you do get a nice vacation you've saved up time and money for, you still have to deal with the fact that wherever you go, there's going to be like a bunch of other people doing the exact same thing at the exact same time hoping to have the exact kind of experience you're having. Think you'll enjoy a nice, quiet trip to Antarctica? Well, guess what? So did this family of 8 with the Chihuahua and this really rich entitled elderly couple who somehow brought an RV there to park in front of the most picturesque view. What's that? You want to eat at the top-rated restaurant in Antarctica? Have fun waiting 2 hours for a table and paying $30 for a burger. Thought you'd book time to hang out with penguins? Sorry. They're booked solid for the next 4 months unless you want to pay $200 for the VIP pass that doesn't include anything else other than you get to join that family of 8 that also somehow paid $200 per person and dog. Enjoy watching Braden kick a penguin while Kaylee and Coco see who can scream, bark louder. I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the story. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. One fig was a husband and a happy home and children, and another fig was a famous poet, and another fig was a brilliant professor, and another fig was E.G., the amazing editor, and another fig was Europe and Africa and South America, and another fig was Constantine and Socrates and Attila and a pack of other lovers with queer names and offbeat professions, and another fig was an Olympic lady crew champion. And beyond and above these figs were many more figs I couldn't quite make out. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest, and, as I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black, and, one by one, they plopped to the ground at my feet. Sylvia Plath. The Bell Jar. The reality of work. Finding meaningful employment is so fucking hard. I've studied in a broad range of areas, worked in a couple industries, and I just end up disliking or despising whatever I invest time into learning. I feel like my master's has been a complete waste of time. My hobbies can't make me money. Actually applying for jobs and operating in a professional office capacity pretending I wouldn't rather be riding my bike or doing something interesting is fucking draining. People who like their job, please realize how lucky you are to have something like that to live for. Some people say they would get bored if they didn't have to work. I would not. If I didn't have to worry about money, like won a lottery, long-lost uncle inheritance, I would gladly volunteer plus spend time on my hobbies, travel my country, hang with my dog. Every decision you make might seem like the right one at the time. There's no use in dwelling on your past mistakes, so feel whatever you feel and let it go. Edit. Some of you are mistaking my wording here. Dwelling is not the same as learning from your past and your mistakes. Dwelling would be the inability to move forward from what has happened. Even though you can't change it, you can learn from your past mistakes and improve upon yourself. Nowhere did I say not to learn from your past mistakes. Also, you might learn in hindsight that a decision you made was not the correct one after it was made. It might be obvious in hindsight, but in the moment or at the time, it may have seemed like the right decision. Sometimes, you can't change the decision you made, so learn from it and move forward. Try the best you can not to make the same mistake again. While this is all 100% true, on the flip side, don't waste your youth obsessing over the future and try to enjoy the present to the best of your financial ability. Buy that frivolous thing that makes you happy. Treat yourself to a nice dinner, within reason. I once met a husband of a coworker who all he talked about was saving every dime, that he never goes out and never buys anything enjoyable, all for the sake of a life he plans to live 20-30 years from now when he's in his 60s. The thing about that, by then you're not as physically and potentially mentally able to enjoy life in the same way. Long story short, save for the future but also enjoy the now. The life you're living now is tomorrow's memory. Make it a good memory. For me, the worst part of being an adult, 30, is how much I love video games. How much I played video games growing up and how good I was when I was a teen. We ranked 3rd nationally in Italy on CAD and MW2 on Xbox 360. Now the sad part, I get to play on my 2 days off for most of the day. Every other day I can maybe sneak a couple of hours on a single-player game, and I can't stress enough how frustrating it is, especially in multiplayer games, when your hands are not as fast as they used to be. My reflexes and my judgment skills are rusty AF. I go with confidence pushing enemies and get shredded like cheddar, while in my head I have memories of clutching a whole team in search and destroy, or getting a mob every other day in MW2, and it just gets me so infuriated that I lost so much of my ability when the memories are so clear that they feel like yesterday. Now I talk video games because that's what I do in my free time, but I'm pretty sure this sense of losing who you thought you would always be can be used for many other things. With the exception of some single-player shooters, Doom Eternal, I hardly ever play FPS anymore. Even if I do, I almost rarely play online. There's 2 reasons for that. I don't have the time to invest in the game or the Twitch skills. I am better at games that lean more on thinking and strategy. I don't mind Rainbow Six Siege, or at least what it was in the early years. And I'll play the odd CSGO match because I can lean heavily on existing map and mechanic knowledge, but that's about it. Otherwise I'll look for single-player action, adventure games, strategy games, platformers, puzzle games, etc. I have limited free time to play games, and I want that time to be somewhat predictable and enjoyable. When I play online I'm putting the quality of the experience in someone else's hands, and don't want to deal with trolls, screaming kids, hackers in unranked gameplay, etc. If I'm not playing online with people I know, I'm usually playing for myself. Your dreams are probably going to be crushed. Your chances of becoming a famous entertainer are practically none. Most people don't get careers. Most people get jobs. The competition for the coolest, most fun, and most prestigious jobs is murderous. While a few people get lucky, if you want to be successful you can't ride on having a great idea, you need to put in the fucking hours. There is no magic. Don't base your life plan on getting lucky. Even if you do get the cool, fun jobs, they aren't nearly as cool and fun as you think it should be. Every possible profession has drawbacks and you're going to have to deal with some kind of bullshit. Worst yet is that sometimes no matter how much talent, drive, and skill you have, no matter what you do you'll fail anyway. Even if you make it to the top, somebody is going to dethrone you, probably sooner rather than later. Absolutely nothing will ever go precisely as you planned it. You don't deserve anything.